Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Graphically Hip channel. I'm going to show you today how to recreate artwork. In this case, it's a logo, but doesn't always have to be a logo. And when you would use this is when we try to use the image trace, but the image is too low res. So as you can see, this image is very pixelated. The resolution on it is 150, which is not great. And when I try image trace, oh, hang on, I have the wrong one selected. It doesn't do what I want it to do. So, and just so you guys know, I have tried the other options in here, and it's just not worth it. So I'm going to show you how to do this manually. So I'm starting with the square, the rectangle tool. And I'm just going to draw rectangles that are the same size as the width or the stroke of the letter. And I'm just going to color them pink so that we can see what we're doing for now. And then I'm going to hold Shift and Option, or if you're on a PC, Shift and Alt, and drag that down to create a second one. So as seen in previous videos, what Shift does is allows me to drag it straight down as opposed to it moving. But I want to drag it straight down so it's an exact replica. And then what Option or Alt does is it creates me a copy. So you can see I'm letting go of Alt and I lose that second arrow. When I press Alt or Option, I get the second arrow, meaning this is a copy. So there's my two rectangles that make that one. And then I'm going to, I'm on a Mac, so I'm pressing Command C and Command F. So Command C copies that shape or whatever you have selected. Command F pastes it in place. So it pastes it exactly in the place that you copied it from. So now I have two copies of that, but I'm going to leave it where it is, and I'm just going to drag the shape over to match that one. So now I have my three shapes, and I'm going to grab this one and copy it over here because I'm going to use it on the X. And then I'm going to just grab the corner and turn it so that it matches the same angle of the X. And I think I might be off a little bit, so I'm going to fix it. Okay, and then I gotta make it wider and make it taller. So you can see how I'm matching this corner, and these ones not so much. So we are gonna fix that. But for right now, I'm going to go Command C and Command F again, just copying it and pasting it in place. And then I'm just gonna grab it and rotate it to where I need it to go. Then I'm going to use my arrow keys to bump it over so it's in the right spot. Next, I'm going to grab my pen tool, which is the letter P, or you can find it over here. And I'm just going to manually trace this object. But first, if you press Command R, you're going to see rulers. So there's Command R with them gone, and I hit Command R and they're back. Then you can grab a ruler. You just click on any spot within these markings and drag your ruler over. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to find where exactly center of that fox head is. And you will see why in just a minute. And I'm going to zoom in. So I just want to kind of move him so he's in the center of this straight line down here. So now I'm grabbing my pen tool again. And I'm just going to start here and start drawing or start tracing this fox shape. So I'm just clicking and dragging. Now, if I were to just go to this next point, you can see how that's going to pose a problem up in here. So what I'm going to do is just click on that node and that ends it. So that ends that angle and allows me to start a new one. So then I'm just clicking and dragging until I get the right shape. And you can see that it's not perfect in there. And that's because I didn't go far enough up, but really I'm not too worried about that. So I'm just going to continue doing clicking and dragging and then clicking the node to end it. And you can see that I ended right on my ruler line. Now I want to go up and draw my line here. And if I didn't have that ruler there, I would just hold shift and it would draw me a perfect line at 90 degrees. But because the ruler's there, it actually helps me do that on its own. So I'm just going to click and I'm going to zoom in. Now, because I don't want to be down here or up here at all, I'm going to hold shift. And shift will let me do a perfectly straight line. Or if you move it down, it'll let you do a 45-degree angle, or up, same thing, or up at 90. But right now we want just a 90-degree angle to the left, which is right there. Then I'm just going to continue doing what I was doing. I'm going to show you all another way to do this after we're done here. This is kind of the super manual, almost old school way of doing things. And then the new school way, it's a little bit harder to learn, but you actually get better results. So I've drawn half the shape of my fox face, and I guess I should do the eye as well. And I'm just going to color those pink as well. And then I'm going to select both my shapes, shift and drag it over with the holding option to create a copy. I'm going to right click, I'm going to go transform and reflect. So then this menu pops up and gives me the option to reflect vertically or horizontally. And of course we want it to reflect vertically. So that's where I'm at there. And I'm going to grab it and drag it so it's in the right place. Now, because I want this to be all one shape, I'm going to grab my pen tool and put a node right there. And then I'm just going to drag that node out. So now when I weld it together, or unite it, I guess is the right term, this is the tool to do that under Pathfinder, which you can also find under Window Pathfinder. Now I have a perfect shape that doesn't have any insides. Had I not done that step, and then I were to unite it as is, of course it's not going to do it, but normally it would keep that center line because you're not actually overlapping anything. So I don't know why it worked that time, but it did. So we're just going to leave that. And now I'm going to show you a different way to do this. So I'm just going to drag that off to the side for now. And then I'm going to come back to this one. So this is the fun and definitely more modern way to do this. So you grab your circle tool and you just start drawing circles that match the lines of the logo. So sometimes you have to make those circles oblong. Sometimes you have to rotate them to make them fit. And you can see I've got the right shape, but it's not quite following the path. So I'm just going to make it a bit bigger. And that's good for that shape, I think. And then I'm just going to hold Option and trace and make a copy of that basically and put it there. So now I'm following that line. Then I'm going to take my circle tool and draw another circle, which is going to be a little trickier because this shape right here isn't really circular. It's more like a rounded rectangle. So we may have to use a rounded rectangle instead, or this might work. I think that works. That's good enough. And then again, I'm just going to grab that same circle and put it there. Good enough. And then we can do the same here, or we can manually draw that. If it's me, I'm manually drawing that. I don't see why anybody would waste their time making circles for that, but if you want to, you go ahead. And then I have to account for this angle here because it intersects. But before I do that, I'm going to show you what happens when we use the next tool. So we're going to use the shape builder tool now. And as you can see in the little animation, basically we're just going to draw a line through the shapes that we want to keep and not through the lines or the shapes that we don't want to keep. So selecting the shape builder tool. Now I know I want to keep this line and this and this. But because we're not stopping it right here, it's going to select all of this too. So just watch what happens here. My bad. First we have to select all of our shapes. Then we use the shape builder tool. Okay. So now it created that shape for us. You see there? But like I said, we want it to stop there. So then, whoops. Then I would take my shapes exactly as I have them, move them over holding Shift and Option, reflect them, put them in their right spots. Okay. So now we have something that will intersect here, but nothing that will intersect up here. So we need to draw another circle that will come up. Maybe this one will work if I make it big enough. No, it won't. So I'm just going to draw another one. Actually, I think this one is going to be slightly inaccurate because that's supposed to come to a point. Tell you what, we're just going to go ahead and do our shape builder tool and we'll figure out that bit later. Okay, shape builder. So now I've got this, and you got to kind of be careful when you draw here that you don't draw out of the lines. This is where your coloring in the lines as a child will come in handy. So you kind of have to go a little bit slowly. And there we've created our shapes. So now we can go in and delete all this other stuff that we don't need. Okay, so we've deleted that, and that. Now we have these crazy long tails. So I'm going to draw a circle and try and make it match that sort of line. And to make this work, I'm going to have to get a little creative with what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go into wireframe mode, which is Command Y. And then what I want is for this line to be exactly where that line is. And then you can see how it makes the right shape there. So then I'm going to drag this over so that I can do the same thing on this side. And I'm good there. So I want to grab my shape builder tool again. Whoops. I need to select my shapes first, Sarah. Okay, shape builder. So now I'm just going through again like we did before. There we go. So now we can delete the stuff we don't need. So I don't know if I'm totally sold on that, but you could play around with it if you wanted to and make it a little better. And then of course, I'm just gonna draw my other shape here. And I'm just using my pen tool for that. Connect it there. And then anytime you have symmetrical drawings, don't do things twice. Do them once and then make copies, reflect them, and join them. Now I want to make sure that these two are joined up here perfectly in the corner. Like that. Because on this side, that's exactly what I did. So now we just select all of our shapes, unite. Oh, that's fun. That's okay. It left me some weird shapes here, but that's okay. So if you just click your selection tool or the letter V and hit delete on your keyboard, that'll get rid of those. And there's our shape. So that's two different ways of doing a curvy shape. Then we have these letters. So we have to go in and fix those. So we're just going to use the letter A tool, which is the direct selection tool. Now see how it has these blue circles? And I want to round the corners of just this one and just this one, because that's what the original F looks like. So I'm going to select this blue circle in particular, and it's very hard to see, but it does highlight the circle and make it a dark blue. And then I'm going to hold Shift and select this one as well. So now those two are the only corners I'm rounding. These two I'm not. So then I'm just dragging. And I'm going to drag to the maximum allowable drag because that's the angle that I need. And also that way I know when I go to do this one that I also do, oh, scratch that. This is a bigger rectangle. If we had had the same size rectangle, that would have worked and dragged exactly where we needed to. But I forgot this was a bigger rectangle. So I'm going to go on wireframe for this. And I'm just going to drag until I match the other one. So right there. Then I'm just going to do the same on these ones. Now these three shapes need to become one. So there they are. Now on this one, I'm going to actually make this united before we start. And then I'm going to take my square tool and find the tops of the X, which is about there. But just to be sure, I'm going to drag a ruler down to the F because I know where the F is. So, or where the top of the F is. And you can see in wireframe that my rectangle is exactly where it needs to be. And I'm going to do the same for the bottom. Okay, so then I'm just going to make a copy of my other rectangle and move it down there. And I'm just going to extend these a little bit because they need to extend beyond the box. Otherwise they'll get cut off in the wrong spot. Same thing up here. And same thing up here. Okay. So now I have my squares, my rectangles, and my X. So I've selected all three, and I'm going to use the back minus front tool, and that will just take away those spots. And then basically all I'm doing is going in and doing that exact same thing for these letters. So I'm just using rectangles over and over again. And of course, this is so pixelated that it's going to be hard to get it exactly where it needs to be. But you can kind of get a good idea of, like, once you study fonts enough, you kind of know. Actually, I should start by drawing a ruler here so that it's the same on all letters. Yeah, once you study fonts enough, you kind of start to get to know where things need to be. And using those rulers as your guides is very helpful. And also, whenever you start a new font, start tracing a new font, I like to leave the first letter as is because it kind of acts as a guide for how thick and how wide the stroke weights of that letter are. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So right now I'm just going to bottom align those two shapes because I want to make sure they're exactly aligned with each other. So now what I mean by knowing how big the strokes are, so the stroke weight is how thick a letter is basically. So now I've done it on my first letter. All I have to do is drag this over holding shift and option again and again and again. Because if the font is designed correctly and properly, those vertical stroke weights will all be the same. And then the horizontal stroke weights will all be the same as this one as well. Now, that isn't always true. Not all fonts are designed properly, so sometimes you run into issues. As you can see, like the sides of the M are not the same thickness. So then sometimes you have to adjust for that. And then we're just going in and creating, and actually I think that should be a little bit bigger. We're just going in and creating the same thing we did up there. So you see how this one is rounded? Now I'm going to round it there. And this one, to me, looks like both of these are rounded, so I'm just going to round both of those. And then this one is rounded over here. And same with this one. So we're just going to keep going and doing that thing over and over on all the letters. Now, in case you were wondering how to add the gradient to this, the gradient is referring to the white to black fade, which is called a gradient. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So I know from experience that the X and the F are gradiented together. The fox shape is gradiented separately. And the way I know that is by looking horizontally at this and saying, okay, there's white up here, but there's also white on the fox. And as we go down, the darkest black is about here, same on the F, but on the fox, the darkest black is down here. So I'll show you what I mean by that. And so I'm just going to grab this shape and go Command 8. That turns that into a compound path so that it's all going to gradient the same. If I didn't do that, it would look like, I'll just undo what I did there. It would look like that. So now the eyes would be gradiented separate from the face. Oh, stop it. See how the darkest black is down here, but that wasn't the case with the original artwork. So we're going to hit Command 8, and then it gradients that whole thing together. Now, I'm not a big fan of how the black isn't very black here. So I'm ensuring that it is 100% black. And I'm just going to drag that up a little bit. And then I'm going to drag the white down a little bit. So then we get that a little bit darker black down there. Okay. So now I'm going to make the F and the X a compound path by selecting them both and pressing Command F8 on my keyboard. I'm going to get rid of this outline. And then I'm going to my gradient tool. Because this is a black and white gradient, it's easy because there's a preset for that in here. Okay, I guess not. So I'm just going to go left to right. And again, this doesn't look very black to me. Maybe we need to be in CMYK mode. What are we in here? We're in RGB. Okay, so I'm going to File, Document Color Mode, CMYK. That should help fix things. So now my gradient is going left to right. I just need to change that so it's going up top to bottom. And I just have to do that by typing 90 degrees in here. So there's our white to black gradient. And again, I'm going to drag this off to the side a little bit so we have a better idea of what this gradient does look like. And whoops, I added something in there. Need to turn that back white. So the white kind of comes down a little bit to about there. And then the black, again, is a little more prominent. Oh, see, it's not true black. So if I click this, that'll make it true black. And we had quite a bit more black. Maybe somewhere around there. I don't know. Maybe we'll just leave it. So now, had we put these shapes all together with a Command 8, then you would see how all the black ends up down here and not on these letters at all. So I've just hit undo because that's not what we want, obviously. So that's how you recreate a logo. It takes time. You should charge for your time because your time is valuable and people should expect to have to pay for that service. So now you know how to do it. Now you have something else that you can charge people, another tool in your belt. And thank you so much for watching. If you would like to see what the finished product of this looks like, just comment on this video and I'll send you a JPEG of what it looks like. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.